The walk home at the end of a long night should be a moment of quiet comfort, especially when you're with someone you've known your entire life. For a young woman full of laughter and life, this walk was no different. The air was cool, the streets were quiet, and beside her was a familiar, comforting presence, her childhood friend. There was no fear, no hesitation. Why would there be? This was the boy she grew up with, the one whose face was as familiar as her own reflection. In those final moments, he was her shield, her protector from the imagined dangers of the night. She trusted him completely. That trust was her final mistake. This story begins in that fragile, unsuspecting moment, with an act of faith that was met with an act of unimaginable violence. The hand she believed would guide her safely home was the very hand that would extinguish her light forever. This is the chilling story of that final walk, a journey from a place of absolute safety into the depths of a nightmare. It is a heartbreaking account of how the ultimate act of betrayal can come not from a stranger in the dark, but from the friend who walks beside you, smiling, right before he pulls you into the shadows. Welcome to Beyond the Crime. Hit subscribe to support the channel, it means everything. Let's dive right in. Keeley Bunker was born on September 7, 1999, in the town of Tamworth, located in Staffordshire, a county in the western part of England. She was the oldest of 3 siblings and the only daughter in the Bunker family, who lived a modest, hard-working life. From an early age, Keeley was a source of strength and comfort for her mother, helping out with her younger brothers and supporting the household. She was very close to her family, and her parents often said she was the kind of daughter people could only dream of. Friends and neighbors described her as warm-hearted, compassionate, and always willing to lend a hand to anyone in need. In school, Keeley did well academically and had a passion for literature, music, and modern dance. She was well-read, intelligent, and always interesting to talk to. She had a wide circle of friends who adored her, not only because she was kind and supportive, but because she genuinely cared about others and their struggles. By high school, Keeley had made up her mind about her future. She wanted to work in education and dreamed of becoming an elementary school teacher. It made perfect sense to everyone who knew her. She had always loved working with young kids and was more than happy to babysit both her brothers and the neighbors' little ones. After graduating, Keeley was accepted into a teaching program at a respected educational institute that was part of Staffordshire University. She was overjoyed, and her parents were incredibly proud. She quickly adapted to student life, made new friends, and found her coursework manageable. She continued dancing and stayed socially active, regularly attending concerts, sporting events, and campus parties with fellow students. Keeley also maintained a social media presence, where she shared photos, updates about school, and glimpses into her daily life. In the summer of 2019, at the age of 19, Keeley began looking for her first job. Before long, she got an interview for a teacher's assistant position at an elementary school, the very one she had recently graduated from. It was a full-circle moment for her, and she was thrilled to start working there at the end of September. Keeley took the job on a part-time basis so she could balance work with her college studies. She was preparing for this new chapter in her life with excitement, confident that it would be the perfect stepping stone for her teaching career. Around the same time, she was also getting ready to celebrate her 20th birthday, her first big milestone as an adult. On Saturday, September 7, 2019, Keeley planned a quiet celebration at home with her family. The small gathering included her parents, younger brothers, grandparents, and her maternal uncle with his wife and their kids. These were the people Keeley loved most, and she saved the party with friends for a later date. The following Saturday, September 14th, Keeley threw a party with her college friends at a local venue. The night was filled with music, dancing, and laughter. Keeley looked radiant and full of life. Among the guests were her best friend, Monique Riggin, and her childhood neighbor, Wesley Streete. Keeley had known both since grade school. They'd grown up together, and she considered them part of her inner circle. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. No one could have predicted that Keeley had less than a week left to live. As a birthday gift, Monique gave Keeley tickets to a concert by their favorite rapper, set for Wednesday, September 18th. in the nearby city of Birmingham. The two had been looking forward to the event and had planned everything in advance. The two college students had several options for getting to the concert in a nearby city and returning home afterward. Both Keeley and Monique had driver's licenses and owned their own cars, but since they planned to relax and enjoy a few drinks that evening, driving was quickly ruled out. Their families could have picked them up, but the show was scheduled to end around 11 p.m., and everyone had to be up early the next day for work or school. Taking the train seemed like the most reasonable choice. There was just one small catch. The train back from Birmingham to Tamworth only ran once during the night, at 2 a.m. Still, the girls weren't too worried. They figured they had more than enough time after the concert to make it to the station. On the day of the event, the two friends got ready and traveled together to see their favorite hip-hop artist perform. They had a fantastic time, dancing, singing along, and enjoying every minute of the show. Afterward, still full of energy and with nearly 3 hours to spare before the last train, they decided to go to a nightclub. At the club, they met up with Wesley Streete, who had originally shown up with a different group. When he saw Keeley and Monique, he left his table to join them. The three chatted and had a couple of cocktails. They got so caught up in conversation and enjoying each other's company that time slipped away. By the time they realized it, the train had already departed. Not wanting to wake their families in the middle of the night for a ride, they decided to share a cab home. Splitting the fare 3 ways made it an easy decision for the students. Surveillance footage outside the club showed the 3 of them leaving together around 2:40 a.m. and getting into a taxi. The drive home took about 30 minutes, and the group got out near Monique's place. Keeley had left a makeup bag and some perfume there earlier when they were getting ready for the concert and wanted to pick up her things. Monique offered to let her spend the night, but Keeley had an interview the next morning. She wanted to change clothes and grab a few things from her room. Her house was only about a 20-minute walk away, and Wesley lived nearby on a parallel street. Keeley even joked with Monique, saying, "I've got Wes with me, nothing to worry about, he'll look out for us both." Monique didn't argue. The friends said their goodbyes at the front door, and Monique headed inside. About half an hour later, Monique texted Keeley to check if she'd made it home safely, but she got no reply. She didn't think much of it at the time. They had both had a long, exhausting day, and she assumed Keeley had just fallen asleep. Monique went to bed and didn't try to call or text again. Keeley's parents didn't immediately worry either. They knew their daughter as mature, responsible, and independent. They trusted her completely and never imagined something could go wrong. All evening and late into the night, Keeley had been posting photos on social media, pictures from the concert and the club. Her parents could see where she was and who she was with. Since they knew Monique and Wesley well, they had no reason to be concerned. When they realized in the morning that Keeley hadn't come home, they assumed she'd just stayed over at Monique's, something she had done before. Monique woke up around noon the next day and saw that her friend still hadn't replied to her message. It struck her as unusual, but she reassured herself that Keeley was probably just catching up on sleep or had been in a rush and hadn't had time to text back. Monique figured that if something were wrong, Keeley's parents would have already raised the alarm. But as the clock approached 3 p.m., and there was still no response, plus Keeley's phone had been turned off, Monique started to feel uneasy. She decided to call Keeley's parents to check in and see if everything was okay. That call quickly turned into panic. Keeley hadn't spent the night at home or at Monique's. Monique explained that Keeley had declined the sleepover, saying she had things to do the next morning. She'd left with Wesley, who had offered to walk her part of the way home since they lived in the same direction. That was the last time anyone heard from her. Her phone had been off ever since. It was critical to speak with Wesley and find out what had happened. Keeley never made it home. Terrified, Keeley's parents went straight to Wesley's house. He answered the door looking half asleep and appeared genuinely shocked to hear that Keeley hadn't made it back the night before. He admitted that he hadn't walked her all the way to her door. According to him, they stopped at a phone booth at the corner where their paths split. Keeley had said she'd be fine on her own. The walk from that spot to her home was only about 150 feet. Wesley said he didn't insist on walking her the rest of the way because he was feeling sick from the drinks and just wanted to get home and into bed. He told Keeley goodbye and turned down his street, without even looking back to make sure she was safe. Once he got home, he didn't check in or call her. He just shut off his phone and went to sleep. Now, he said he felt guilty and blamed himself for not walking her all the way home. After hearing his story, Keeley's parents went straight to the police and reported her missing. Surprisingly, authorities responded immediately. They didn't insist on waiting the standard 24 hours, despite Keeley being an adult, arguing that the circumstances raised enough concern to act right away. Monique and Wesley became the main witnesses in the case, as they were the last people to see and interact with Keeley. At first, no one suspected them of anything. After all, they had grown up with Keeley and had been friends since grade school. Still, law enforcement needed detailed statements from both, as their accounts could be critical to the investigation. Both Monique and Wesley were cooperative and seemed eager to help. They recounted the night's events minute by minute in great detail, and their stories matched almost exactly. Wesley claimed that after parting ways with Monique, he and Keeley walked a short distance together. He said nothing seemed out of place during that time, nothing suspicious, no signs of danger. He explained that he hadn't escorted her all the way because he was feeling sick from the alcohol and didn't want to get ill in front of her. According to him, they made it to a corner where an old phone booth stood. Keeley continued walking straight toward her house, while Wesley turned off onto his street, feeling nausea come on. He never circled back to check on her, nor did he stay to make sure she got inside safely. Unfortunately, the stretch of road Keeley had to walk alone had no surveillance cameras, making it impossible to confirm whether she made it home. The incident took place in the early hours of the morning, so there were no bystanders, and none of the neighbors reported seeing or hearing anything unusual. Officers decided to search the Bunker family home, working off the theory that Keeley may have made it back but then left again for some reason. However, nothing in the house or in Keeley's room indicated that she had returned that night. There were no signs of anything unusual or out of place. Investigators brought Monique and Wesley in again for further questioning. Once more, the two walked through the night's events step by step, down to the minute. No new information came to light, so detectives attempted to track Keeley's phone. Unfortunately, the device was turned off, and the last signal had been picked up during the early morning hours, right around the area where she was last seen. Cell service providers responded to law enforcement's request for phone activity, but no calls or texts provided any helpful leads. Monique then gave investigators access to Keeley's social media accounts to review her messages in case she had arranged to meet someone else that night. But that theory went nowhere. Keeley's last activity online was around 2 a.m., when she posted a couple of photos from the club where she had been with Monique and Wesley. When Monique and Wesley were called in again for another round of statements, Monique showed up immediately. She was visibly shaken, cried through most of the questioning, and blamed herself for what had happened. She offered any and all help she could provide. Wesley, on the other hand, appeared increasingly agitated and began to treat the repeated interviews as though the police were accusing him of something.
It's scary, but not scary in a way.
The sergeant, when you get there, the sergeant will explain everything.
Yeah.
So you got any questions, you'll answer. Because basically there's a custody sergeant here that looks after
everyone.
So you'll go through your welfare, your legal rights. Yeah. And if there's anything that you want, I'm shivering.
Yeah, well, that's natural, mate.
Well,
because you're cold.
Okay. There's sort of blanket and stuff like that. It will all, you just basically there's people that work here to make sure that people are coming.
Just help out. Yeah, I know what you mean. Whatever he says, just tell him the truth.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
More troubling, his story began to shift. He changed small details, added new ones, or left things out. For instance, he initially claimed he had gotten sick shortly after parting ways with Keeley, but he couldn't pinpoint exactly where. Later, he said that he had been mistaken and that it hadn't happened at all. He chalked up the inconsistencies to the heavy drinking that night, saying the alcohol had blurred his memory. These contradictions raised concerns, but detectives held off on making conclusions. It was true that all three had been drinking, and that alone could cause some memory gaps. But when officers asked Wesley to walk through the night again in full detail, he lost his composure. Frustrated, he demanded to know if he was being accused of something.
No.
It's not what you want, is to be back in the police car.
I just feel like I'm getting the blame.
No
one's blaming you.
You said when I was at the house that all I needed to do was speak to the officer, and then I could go and look for Keeley, and then you take my phone off.
But as my colleague said, at the minute, there's a lot of people involved in what's happening, of which we are PCs, and there are people who are a lot higher up than us who are making decisions.
Yeah. I don't. Because now, when you say you're going to take my phone, now I feel like you're blaming me.
No, we haven't blamed, mate. We haven't once since we've been sat in this car. I think your dad can vouch. We haven't once blamed you for anything. All we've done, we've been told by our bosses that we need to take us on the scene. To take you on the scene. Where it's gone, the route. So have a drive of the route, and we are literally just following those instructions. And I know you've got a lot of questions. I know your parents have probably got a lot of questions, but and I think it's obvious when I say that we've been with you, so I can't answer those questions because we've been sat in the car.
Yeah. They have to do what they're told, and from the police side, they've got like a tick sheet. They have to make sure that there isn't anything on your phone.
Yeah.
And they have to kind of cross you out.
Yeah, I get it.
This isn't just for the sake of it. They've obviously done it for a reason, and it's to help. Yeah. So.
Alright.
That's all we want to do. We want to help.
And it's scary, and they understand that it's scary. Okay.
Yeah. I just don't want them to laugh if they go through my Google and.
No, they're not worried about.
Yeah, no, don't worry
about it. It's the girl, Wes.
Yeah.
But Wes, all we're going to look for on your phone is going to be things that relate to you and her, right? We don't care about your Google. Yeah. We're not allowed to look for stuff like that because ultimately we don't need to, do we?
Literally,
because it has to be transparent, mate. That's all it is.
But
all right.
He doesn't understand.
His defensive attitude continued to raise red flags, though at that point there was still no physical evidence tying him to a crime. The police had no grounds to charge him with anything yet. The Bunkers were informed of Wesley's erratic behavior, but they didn't see it as suspicious. They noted that Wesley had been friends with Keeley since elementary school and figured he was just overwhelmed with worry. Monique also suggested that he might be feeling intense guilt and stress about Keeley's disappearance. Detectives, along with both Monique and Wesley, went back once more to the last location where the friends had parted ways.
Right. Wesley, you need to listen to me. Right. This moment in time, you're under arrest on suspicion of murder. Okay, you don't have to say anything. It may harm your defence if you do. Make sure my questions in court. Anything you do say may be given evidence. Okay? So we're going to take you to a police station now. All right, we'll sort everything else there. So, all right, okay. My colleague here is going to stay with your mum and dad. All right, just to get them safe. All right. Are you able to scoot over, mate? Is that all right? Because I'll sit next to you. I'll sit here. All right. Grab your dad's cable if I can. Yeah. You got it? Yeah. Just put your seatbelt on, mate, and I'll sit next to you in a minute. Okay. That's Dad's phone charger.
Dad's phone charger.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
In relation to what?
We're going to start moving. Just step away from the car for me.
Just wait a minute, please.
We need to go now.
Right, just wait a minute, please.
So we need to go now.
I-
You just need to come away from the car for me, please. If you could. I'll let the sergeant discuss that with you. All right.
They wanted to be sure nothing had been overlooked. Monique did her best to recall every detail that might help. Wesley, however, started avoiding direct questions and became increasingly defensive, acting as if he was already being blamed. With no solid leads to go on, the police quickly launched a full-scale search operation, hoping they still had a chance to find Keeley alive. Less than 24 hours had passed since her disappearance, so time was critical. Search teams were formed, including officers, volunteers, Keeley's family members, friends, including Monique and Wesley neighbors, and concerned locals. The area was divided into search zones, and each group was assigned a section to cover. Crews combed through vacant lots, abandoned or unfinished buildings, and a nearby park with wooded areas and a lake. It was at the lake around 9 p.m. that a horrifying discovery was made. A team led by Keeley's uncle, Jason Brown, noticed an unusual pile of branches and leaves. Deciding to investigate, they began to clear it away. What they found underneath shocked everyone, a young woman's body lying face down. It was Keeley, and sadly, nothing could be done to save her. Her body was partially submerged in water, weighed down with branches, and covered in leaves and grass. Her jeans had been pulled down, and her clothing was torn, suggesting a targeted and violent assault believed to be the motive behind the attack. When Keeley's parents arrived at the scene, they confirmed that the remains were their daughter's. Forensic specialists thoroughly examined the area, and Keeley's body was sent for an autopsy to determine the cause of death. As feared, she had been assaulted, and no protective measures had been used, allowing investigators to recover DNA evidence from the attacker. The official cause of death was strangulation. Keeley had been strangled with bare hands. In addition to that, her body showed signs of multiple injuries, including bruises, abrasions, and defensive wounds on her arms, proving that she had fought back with everything she had. A toxicology report revealed only a low level of alcohol in her system, meaning Keeley was not intoxicated and had likely been fully aware of what was happening to her. But how did she end up in that lake? The case was reclassified as a criminal investigation, and Wesley became the primary suspect. He had been the last known person to see Keeley alive. He was arrested, but due to the lack of conclusive evidence, police could not hold him for more than 24 hours. Interestingly, Wesley now acted completely calm, detached, even indifferent. Phone records showed that Wesley's device had been turned off around the same time and in the same area as Keeley's. While not definitive, it added to growing suspicions. He also had visible bruises and scratches on his body, which he couldn't clearly explain. He chose not to speak and requested an attorney. The park had several surveillance cameras, and investigators analyzed the footage carefully. One video showed a couple resembling Wesley and Keeley walking down a pathway. About 15 minutes later, a dark figure wearing a hood was seen hurrying out of the park. Though the face was obscured, authorities strongly believed it was Wesley. When confronted with the footage, Wesley shared a version of events that no one saw coming. He claimed that Keeley had suggested going into the park to hang out and talk. They were having fun, goofing around, and he had lifted her onto his shoulders as a joke, but allegedly due to the alcohol he'd consumed, he lost his balance after just a few steps. He said he stumbled, fell, and Keeley hit her head on the curb and then stopped moving. Wesley claimed he panicked when he realized Keeley wasn't breathing. Overcome with fear, he said he left her in the park and fled. However, the forensic report revealed no signs of head trauma that would support this version of events. Additionally, this explanation didn't align at all with the evidence of an intentional physical assault. Then Wesley suggested a new theory, that someone else must have come across Keeley after he left, taken advantage of her, and tried to cover it up by placing her body in the water. But this theory quickly unraveled. Forensic testing soon returned results from the crime lab, confirming that DNA evidence from the scene belonged to Wesley. Confronted with this, he changed his story again, offering an even more implausible explanation. Now he claimed that Keeley had lured him into the park, confessed her feelings for him, kissed him, and that they ended up being physically intimate by mutual consent. He insisted everything that happened was voluntary, and that afterward they went their separate ways. According to Wesley, someone else must have attacked Keeley later on, but the autopsy results contradicted this account. The injuries Keeley sustained were consistent with forced aggression, and no DNA from any other individual was found, only Wesley's. When pushed further, Wesley altered his story once again. He claimed Keeley had certain preferences during intimacy and had asked him to be rough, specifically to apply pressure to her neck. He said he was trying to please her and didn't realize how much force he was using until it was too late. When he noticed she was unresponsive, he panicked, dragged her to the water's edge, concealed her with branches and leaves, then went home and acted like nothing had happened. The claim that Keeley had initiated anything with Wesley, or even felt romantically about him, was rejected outright by everyone who knew her. Keeley saw Wesley not just as a close friend, but as a brother. She had never expressed any romantic interest in him, something her family and close friends all confirmed. Though the exact motive remained unclear, the court concluded the crime was driven by uncontrolled passion. As the investigation progressed, even more disturbing information about Wesley's past surfaced. This wasn't his first incident. He had previously been accused of inappropriate conduct toward other women. However, this was the first time he had taken someone's life. 2 other women came forward during the trial, both of whom had been harmed by Wesley in the past. One of them had been underage at the time of the incident. They had remained silent out of fear, but felt compelled to speak once they learned he had been arrested. Their testimonies helped paint a fuller picture of a dangerous individual hiding behind a friendly face. The trial began in September 2020, 1 year after Keeley's life was taken by someone she had trusted deeply. While the act wasn't premeditated, the court found that Wesley had taken advantage of an opportunity to fulfill a disturbing impulse. Wesley Streete was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole no earlier than 29 years. He has never admitted guilt, nor has he shown remorse to Keeley's loved ones. To this day, he continues to insist that their encounter was consensual, and that her passing was a tragic accident that cost him his freedom. Although Keeley received the justice she deserved, her death remained a dark shadow hanging over her family and friends.
What follows is the family statement from all of the family and friends of Keeley Bunker. Keeley Bunker, our Keeley Bunks, was the kindest, most beautiful young lady that you could ever wish to meet. Keeley was compassionate, loving, caring, and put others before herself, always. Keeley loved everyone unconditionally, and nothing was ever too much trouble. She had many friends. She didn't realise just how many she had. We know that she was loved by all. We could never have wished for any more from Keeley. She was perfect in every way. Her life was taken away so cruelly, far too soon. Keeley had many dreams that have now all been stolen from both her and from us, her family and friends. We will not see Keeley marry, go on to have children, enjoy any holidays or work. The world was hers, and Keeley was just beginning to live a happy life. As Keeley's family, the outcome of this trial will never be enough in terms of justice. It will never bring our Keeley back to us. We miss her so much that words can never express the thought we think. Never ever will we forget the precious years that we had with our Keeley, together with all of the memories that we will always hold dear. We love you, Keeley.
Keeley's last reassuring words to her friend were, "I've got Wes with me, nothing to worry about." Knowing what happened next, how does this single sentence change the way you think about personal safety and the trust we place in people we've known forever? I'm interested to read what you have to say in the comments. Until next time, stay safe.